In recent decades, Islamophobia, fear, hostility, and prejudice towards Islam and Muslims has become an increasingly discussed issue around the world. Muslim communities in many countries have reported rising discrimination, hate crimes, and political rhetoric targeting their religion and identity. But Islamophobia didn't appear overnight. While negative portrayals of Islam have existed for centuries, many historians argue that modern Islamophobia took shape during the geopolitical conflicts of the last 70 years. A series of wars, political crises, terrorist attacks, and media narratives gradually reshaped how Islam and Muslim societies were perceived globally. To understand how these attitudes developed, we need to look at the timeline of events that begins in the mid-20th century with the creation of a new state in the Middle East. In 1948, the State of Israel was established following the end of the British rule in Palestine. Almost immediately, war broke out between Israel and several neighboring Arab countries. For Palestinians, the conflict led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people in an event known as Nakba, or catastrophe. The Arab-Israeli conflict quickly became one of the most visible and politically charged conflicts in the world. Western media began covering the region extensively. However, critics argue that the conflict was often framed through religious and cultural narratives rather than purely political ones. Over time, political conflicts in the Middle East were sometimes interpreted in ways that blurred the distinction between Islam as a religion and geopolitical struggles involving Muslim-majority societies. This framing would shape the global perception for decades. During the Cold War, the Middle East became a strategic battleground between global powers. The United States and the Soviet Union both sought influence in the region. Several major wars brought international attention to the Middle East. The 1956 Suez Crisis, the 1967 Six-Day War, and the 1973 Yom Kippur War. These conflicts keep the region constantly in the global spotlight. In many Western news outlets, coverage of these wars often emphasized instability, extremism, and violence. Over time, repeated exposure to these narratives helped shape a simplified image of the Middle East, one often associated with conflict and danger. For some audiences, these portrayals gradually influenced perceptions of Islam itself. Another turning point came in 1979 with the Iranian Revolution. The revolution overthrew the US-backed Shah of Iran and replaced the monarchy with an Islamic republic led by Ayatollah Khamenei. For many Western governments and media outlets, the revolution was shocking. It marked one of the first times in modern history that a major state openly organized its government around Islamic ideology. Shortly afterwards, the Iran hostage crisis began when Iranian students seized the US embassy in Tehran and held American diplomats hostage for more than a year. The crisis dominated international headlines and intensified negative perceptions of Iran and political movements associated with Islam. In the 1980s and 1990s, several militant groups that claimed Islamic justification carried out high-profile attacks around the world. These events received widespread global media coverage. Scholars and critics argue that in many cases, the actions of extremist groups were sometimes portrayed in ways that associated violence with Islam more broadly. This contributed to growing fears and suspicion towards Muslims in certain countries. At the same time, Muslim leaders and scholars frequently emphasized that extremist groups represented political movements and fringe interpretations, not the beliefs of the broader Muslim population. Nevertheless, public perceptions continued to be shaped by repeated coverage of violence connected to extremist groups. The attacks on September 11, 2001 became a defining moment in modern history. Nearly 3,000 people were killed when the extremist group Al-Qaeda carried out coordinated attacks in the United States. In response, the United States launched the War on Terror, leading to military operations in Afghanistan and later Iraq. Security policies expanded dramatically. Governments increased surveillance programs, airport security, and intelligence operations. But for many Muslim communities, the period after 9/11 also brought a surge in discrimination. Reports of anti-Muslim hate crimes increased in several countries. Mosques were targeted, and many Muslims reported being treated with suspicion or hostility. In the 21st century, the rise of social media has transformed how information spreads. News, political messaging, and viral content now reaches millions of people instantly. While this has allowed greater global conversation, it has also amplified misinformation and stereotypes. Political debates about immigration, security, and terrorism sometimes include rhetoric targeting Muslim communities. At the same time, activists, journalists, and educators have increasingly worked to challenge Islamophobia and promote greater understanding between cultures. Modern Islamophobia is not the result of a single event. Instead, it developed over decades through a complex combination of politics, conflict, media narratives, and global tensions. From the wars of the mid-20th century to the war on terror and the age of social media, each era has shaped how Islam and Muslims are perceived around the world. Understanding this history doesn't solve the problem overnight, but it can help people move beyond stereotypes and engage with one another through a deeper meaning and understanding of the forces that shape the modern world. If you enjoy history content like this, consider liking the video and subscribing for more. Thanks for watching.